Good morning, friends. I had the privilege of sitting with this reading all week long, and I just kept asking myself these two questions. Why tell God anything when he knows everything? And why offer God anything when he has everything? And I found in a certain way, Swami Kriyananda does an interesting thing with the titles. Every week he's asking us a question for the most part. And this one I found as I was sitting with it and repeating it over and over in my mind. It's a little tricky because the ego really has something to chew on here. I could kind of feel that, why tell God anything? He knows everything. Sort of that feeling of, yeah, you know what I need. You know what I want. So why do I have to say anything to you? You know it already. And there was a little edge of, so prove it. Prove to me that you know. Prove to me that you know what I need. Tell me what I need. But of course, we know the secret. As soon as the ego slips in there, then we don't really know what we need. We know, what we need. We know what we want, right? And as yogis sitting in this room, whether it's your first day in this temple or your 50th time, year sitting in this temple, we all know that to test God in that way and say, sure, tell me what I want, not a good idea, because he'll give you exactly what you need to grow and to change and to evolve. It made me think about that story that comes, I think, a little bit earlier in the year. I think we've already had it. We're at the end of our year. But of the temptation of Christ, when Satan is tempting Christ, and, he takes him out over the cliffs and says, turn these rocks to bread. And then he takes him to the top of the temple. I can give you all of this. And Jesus, of course, in all his masterful consciousness, is able to resist the temptations of the devil or of Satan until finally Satan says, fine, then jump off this cliff and prove to me that your Father will save you. And of course, he knows not to even get involved in that kind of testing. But then when we sit back and we actually think about the subtlety of what this reading is actually asking us, I was having a conversation with Shanti the other night, and I was saying, how do I pick this thread up in a new way? Because we know this, demand of God what we need. Ask him as a child asking his mother. And I said, what's something that's new? And she said, well, let's talk about how God is our best friend. How do we make God our best friend? And I looked at her and I said, I don't know. But then I actually thought about it a little bit more and started to really sit with that idea that at the end of the day, that's the question that's being posed to us here. And it's a beautiful question for us to contemplate. What is your relationship with God? And what relationship do you want with God? Because we all know from the relationships in our lives that those relationships that are dynamic, that are filled with challenge and love and support, they are the most interesting relationships. They're the most fruitful relationships in our lives. And those relationships where we're just giving or we're just receiving, those one-sided relationships, they come and they pass through our lives, but they don't often give us the change that we're looking for. I was thinking about this book. Some of you, particularly if you were raised here in the U.S., you may remember it, and if you're around 40 years old, maybe a little older too. I don't know when it was published. It was by an author named Shel Silverstein. It's called The Giving Tree. I almost was going to play it. I found a recording of it. Yeah, here. See, everyone my age is going, oh. We grew up with that book, and I almost was going to play this little recording of it, but I figured I would tell you the story anyway, because it's actually a kind of a sad story. So for all of us that are going, oh, now I'm going to remind you of what this story is all about. And there's a little boy, and the little boy has an apple tree. And every day he comes to the apple tree, and he climbs the apple tree, and he swings from its branches, and he eats the fruit off of its tree. And what the author and the narrator says, and the boy was happy, and the tree was happy. And then the boy grows up, as tends to happen in the world, and he starts to visit less and less, and the tree becomes a little bit more lonely. Then one day, as a young adolescent, the boy comes back, and the tree says, come, swing from my branches, climb my trunk, eat my apples. And he says, I don't have time to eat your apples or to climb your tree. He says, I need money. I have to make my way in the world. And the tree says, well, I'm just a tree, but I have apples. Take all of my apples, go to market, sell my apples, and have money, and you'll be happy. And the boy gathers all of the apples, and he takes them to market, and the tree is happy. But the tree's alone. And for many, many years, the tree is sitting and waiting for the boy to return. And finally, many years later, the boy comes back a little bit older now, kind of in the prime of his adulthood. And the tree says, come and climb up my branches, swing, eat my apples, eat my fruits. And the boy says, I don't have time for this. He says, I need to build a house. And the tree says, well, I'm just a tree, but take my branches, take all of them, and build your house and be happy. And the boy takes all the branches, and he leaves, or the man now, takes all the branches and leaves. You see where this story is going. He comes back one more time, an even older man now, and the tree says, come and sit with me and be with me. And he says, no, I want to build a boat and sail away from this life. And the tree says, well, all I have to offer is my trunk. And he cuts off the trunk and takes the trunk away and builds a boat. And the tree is happy to give to the boy whatever it is that he needed. Then finally, many, many years later, the boy comes back, but now he's an old man. And he's walking up to the tree. And he sits down, or he looks at the tree, and the tree says, you've come back. Come, swing from my branch. He says, I have no branches. I have no fruits. I'm just a trunk. And the old man says, well, I'm very tired, and I'm very old, and all I want is a place to sit quietly and to be in that, and to be quiet. And the tree says, well, I have a trunk for you to sit on. And the old man sits down. And this is the tree and the boy were very happy. And it's a sweet story in a certain way, though also a little bit sad, because the boy kept taking everything that he wanted. But every time the boy took what he wanted, the tree was happy and joyful to give it to him. And in a certain way, for many of us, we're taught that this is the relationship that we have with God until we come somewhere like this temple where these great masters say to us, no, it is your dynamic energy, it is your participation, it is your love and your exchange of love with God that creates that dynamic relationship. It's not just God giving to us. God is happy to give us anything and everything that we need to grow. But when we come ready to ask, what do I need to transform? What do I need to change? Let me give you all of my love. That's when Divine Mother reaches up with both of those hands, or reaches down with both of those hands to pick us up. And we don't have just that one-sided relationship, but we have a dynamic and a fruitful relationship. And we learn, just like that man, as an old man comes back full circle, we learn that all the things in the world that we thought we wanted, everything we think we need to find happiness, what do we need really but a place to sit, to be quiet, and to contemplate our love for the divine? Because that's the secret that these masters always tell us over and over again. I always feel so grateful that I landed here in this temple with this guru, Paramhansa Yogananda. You know, when I walked in the doors of this temple about 13 years ago, I had no idea where I was coming. I just felt drawn to come in one day. I'd never heard of Yogananda before. Of course, it's my great blessing to say now that that's not true at all, that I feel I know him very intimately. But to come to a place where the root of our relationship with the divine is just like, I forget where we were hearing it over and over again, but I think it was in the prayer that Aryavan was reading today, that it's all just love. Everything dissolves back into love. And it's our job, this is what our reading is saying to us today, how much are you giving to that relationship? Why do we talk to God when he knows everything? Because why wouldn't we want to tell God everything? Think about your relationship with your best friend, your closest partner, whatever it may be. You tell them everything, all the joys, all the sorrows. And the more that intimacy grows between you, the more connected you feel, the more supported you feel, the more alive you feel in that relationship. And you stand there ready to accept everything that they have to offer, but equally ready to give everything that you have to offer. And that is what God is asking for of us. Of course, he has everything. He's manifested this universe. He is already everything. The question is, do we remember it? Do we know it? And what do we need to do in order to find that again, in order to remember that again? And we get examples of it over and over again. I could tell, I was telling Shanti last night, we were talking, I said, I have about 10 half stories, and we'll see which one, sorry, was that me, becomes a whole story here, because there's so many examples of what that actually can look like in our lives. And the one that I landed on this morning was the life of Krishna, because Krishna plays 3 very distinct roles in the life of Krishna that we have. The first role is Krishna as the baby. And Yashoda, I was so touched this year at Janmashtami. Keshava, he's somewhere. Keshava wrote this beautiful play, and so many people put it together and brought it to life. But it was the life of Krishna from the perspective of Yashoda, the mother. And I thought, what is it like to be the mother of the divine? To have to carry and to hold and contain that, but also to be the mother. And of course, we know Krishna was a naughty little baby, stealing butter and eating clobs of mud. But every single time that Yashoda approached her child, she approached him with the authority of a mother's love. There was never any question in it. And I thought to myself, do we approach, I know that this reading says to receive Divine Mother's love as a child to the parent, and that is the ultimate way that we want to relate to God. But I thought, do we love God with the authority of a mother who loves her child unquestioningly, unwaveringly, no matter how naughty that little child is? And Divine Mother is naughty with us sometimes. I'm saying that playfully. But she is, right? She tests us. She pushes us to our limits. And we want to look at her and say, what are you doing? One of my favorite, Yogananda, we have many recordings of Yogananda giving talks. And one of them, I can't remember which one it is. I was trying to this morning. But he just always says, I always say to Divine Mother, why are you doing this to us? And he speaks to her with that sort of authority to know that no matter what, Divine Mother will always be there to receive our love. And we get to be dynamic in that giving and that receiving. It's okay. You get to come to your best friend and you get to complain about all of the things that are going on in the world, all of the things that you're dealing with in your life. That's what a best friend is for. That's one of the many things a best friend is for. And you get to hold that intimacy in that space. So do we love God unwaveringly? Are we willing to shake our finger at God and say, I don't know what is happening here? Because it's in that conversation that that dynamic faith in the divine is fostered. If we just turn away and we take a step back and God is up there and whatever is happening to us, we have to receive passively. And our job is just to be as dutiful as we can, whether we believe it or not in our hearts. There's always a little bit of distance. But if we walk up like Yashoda as Krishna's eating clobs of mud and pick up our little baby and shake him and say, what are you doing? You can't be eating mud. But then right there, what does Krishna reveal? All of the universe to her just by looking in his mouth. And then as that relationship evolves with Divine Mother, we become Radha, we become the gopis. We become the beloved with Krishna, and we're dancing with Krishna. We're dancing with Divine Mother. And are we willing to give all of our vulnerability in that moment as well? One of my favorite stories, not about Radha in particular, but about the gopis. All of Krishna's gopis are bathing in the Yamuna River. And Krishna, being a little naughty as he is, he sees them all and he comes and he takes all of their clothes. And one by one, they have to exit the river to get their clothes back from him. And I always think about what that means. And, there's a wonderful author. I know many people. I think the LA Pilgrimage, I just saw videos. They were just with this woman. Her name is Vanamali Devi. She wrote this wonderful book on the life of Krishna. She's written many books, Krishna, Hanuman, Shiva. And in the book on the life of Krishna, she says, why did Krishna force the gopis to come stripped before him? And she says it's because we have to learn to be vulnerable, stripped of all disguises before the divine, to give everything that we are and to stand in front of Divine Mother. So it's a symbol of what that looks like. And in that intimacy of our love and our connection with Divine Mother, are we willing to be vulnerable? Are we willing to stand and to say, I don't know what to do. My faith is being shaken. Because in the asking of that question, just like in the asking of the mother's authority or the parent's authority to the child, the divine beloved, the authority, the intimacy of the partnership that comes from that, can we stand stripped of all disguises? Can we stand stripped of everything that we walk around and hold so dear to hold ourselves together and just to say in front of Divine Mother, I don't know what's next, but I have faith in you and I'll walk with you. Then, of course, we come to the final example or role that Krishna plays for us in his great epic, which is that of the guru. And we get to be Arjuna, standing at the feet. Of course, we know the story very well. The whole Bhagavad Gita begins with the battle between Duryodhana and, or between the Pandavas and, Thank you, and the Kauravas. But, at the very beginning, we have Duryodhana and Arjuna both coming to Krishna, and Duryodhana gets there first, and he stands at the foot of the bed, ready to receive his prize. And what does Arjuna do? He walks in quietly, sits at the edge of the bed, and bows his head in surrender, in devotion, in complete trust. And the life of Arjuna, of course, the greatest example for each one of us. Because what is it that he chooses? Krishna gives him two choices, and he says, you can have all my armies, you can have all of my strength. I'll give it all to you, or you can have me. And of course, that's the ultimate choice. And he says, but I will drive your chariot. And so that's the third and final question for us. Are we willing to surrender the reins of our chariot, to hand them over to the divine, dynamically with full faith, knowing that wherever it is that the Divine Mother is going to lead us, that we're there with intention, we're there with purpose, we're there with intentionality to know that we are here to grow. Last night I just Googled. I wish I'd written it down. I put it in my journal, but I didn't bring my journal out here, so let me see if I can remember them. But I just Googled, how do you build a dynamic relationship? And it was so interesting because the examples, let me see if I can pull them all up. It was just so perfectly laid out that it was the spiritual path. I did put divine relationship with God, or a dynamic relationship with God. It wasn't just any relationship, just to see what the world had to say about it. And not surprisingly, it was everything that we already know on this path. It was, do we spend time with Divine Mother? And that's what these gurus teach us to do over and over again, to meditate every day, to invite Divine Mother into everything that we do, to be dynamic and participate wholly in that relationship. There were other things. It was, do you have a community around you to help you, to support you? Do you read scripture? Do you tune into, are you doing everything that you can to raise your energy to be in tune with the vibration of the relationship that you want? It was the whole of the spiritual path as it's laid out for us by each of these gurus. I'm sure Google knows because I Google this path quite a bit, so I'm sure it knows and was giving me, that's the beauty of AI. It tells you exactly what you want to hear in a certain way. But it was still beautiful, and it was true, and it was genuine and honest. And that's what each one of us gets to be invited to step into. And that's what this question, why tell God anything when he knows everything? Why offer God anything when he has everything? It has nothing to do with what Divine Mother needs from us. And of course, we know it has everything to do with what we want to give to Divine Mother. Because what else do you want to give but everything that you are? And that's why this beautiful reading that we get at the end from the Bhagavad Gita and the nectar that comes at the end of the sacrifice. I was thinking about that and how beautiful it was. And Tandava spoke really just in such a lovely way about the purification ceremony and the fire that we have. And we have these ceremonies and we do puja and we offer ourselves at the altar and we offer prasad at the altar. And each one of these are different ways to offer that sacrifice, to find that divine nectar. But the challenge that's given to each one of us through these gurus, through Yoganandaji, is to make every moment of your life a sacrifice, to give more and more completely all of who you are. And the secret to it is simply to invite Divine Mother in. We don't have to wake up tomorrow and change everything about ourselves to be worthy of Divine Mother's love. We know that we have her love already. The question is, how much are we remembering? How much are we bringing her in? How much are we standing in front of her, loving her with the authority of a parent and child, loving her with the intimacy of the beloved, and loving her with all of the faith and devotion of the disciple unwaveringly, looking at the guru. Each one of these different roles just opens our heart that much more to feel Divine Mother's love, to raise our own energy until suddenly you become in a constant dialogue with Divine Mother. Was it Frank Laubach that Swami Kriyananda spoke about? There's this beautiful Frank Laubach who wrote Letters of a Modern Mystic. Thank you. Letters to a Modern Mystic. He came to speak somewhere near Ananda village many, many years ago. And a group from Ananda went, and one of the observations that they made was that when Frank Laubach started to say his prayer, it wasn't as though the prayer started or ended, but it was simply that constant prayer, that constant communion with the divine, with Divine Mother that was flowing through him. He just started expressing it out loud for just a moment. And then when the prayer stopped, it was still flowing through him. And I've always remembered that and to think that's what we want to do. Why talk to God? Or why tell God anything when He knows everything? Because it's a constant dialogue that brings us closer and closer and closer to that place of knowing that we are one with infinity, that we can extract that sweetest nectar. And that's why that beautiful line from the Bhagavad Gita, the nectar is so much sweeter after the sacrifice. Because for each one of us, how can we make that sacrifice more tangible, more real, more pure in our own lives day to day, not just in our pujas, not just in our ceremonies, not just in our meditations, but in everything that we do, in every thought, in every action, in every... I was trying to pull all the words up, but I won't from the song that we just heard. Let all our hopes and all our dreams past every glow that only seems. I'll spare you the rest of it. But that idea of just being able to give everything into, of course, the final line there, into the truth that we are one. That's how we love God. That's how we evolve. That's how we make God, coming all the way back to Shanti's question to me the other day. Well, why don't you talk about how to make God your best friend? And my response, I don't know how to do that. But we do know how to do that. We do it every day. We do it every moment of our lives. The more that we just bring Divine Mother in, the more we look for Divine Mother and everyone around us, and the more that we choose over and over again to love God with all of the authority in our hearts, all of the intentionality in our hearts, and to say there's nothing but Divine Mother here. Every thought, every need, every desire, I offer it to you. And Divine Mother will pick it up and walk along with us. She knows exactly what we need, but she also knows what we want. And she is the all-loving, all-compassionate. She's not just going to turn away and say, no, here we go. That's what happens when the ego stands up there and says, prove to me that you know what I want. Then she's going to work with you. But if you say, help me see what it is that I want with tender hands, she's going to pick you up and walk you step by step toward that goal. God bless you.
Take a couple moments to allow the inspiration to settle in our hearts. Now we'll have some music.
Narayana